Live from the TV30 studio, here is Jim Schneider.
Well, good evening. Welcome to inFocus. We're so glad that you've joined us tonight for our legislative update. Friends, even as we have just had a wonderful Thanksgiving, we're gearing up for a time of celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ. There is a lot that's going on legislatively speaking here in our state, and the purpose of the program tonight is to cover many of these issues, those that perhaps have a religious overtone to them, or Christian liberty, or some aspect of more morality here in our state. We'll be covering a number of issues. So it's our privilege to have back Jelaine Appling, the president of Wisconsin Family Council, who comes on a monthly basis here for these updates. And good evening, but also thank you, Jelaine.
Oh, well, thank you for the opportunity. Good to see you again.
Good to have you here, and we've got a lot of information to unfold this evening. Much is going on. It seems when it comes to public policy, there's really never a break.
There isn't a break because we have a full-time legislature.
Mm-hmm.
We get a little break on an election year. They'll finish up this. By the way, we're in a 2-year cycle, and in January we begin the second year of the 2 years, and they'll get out of there by probably March, so they can get out and get going on elections and campaigns. So we're in a really, really crunch time right now. They're going to have some hearings this week, and then I don't think they'll have any more hearings until after Christmas. They'll be back in January, and it will be what we call crazy season in the state capitol. Bills will be introduced. There'll be lots of public hearings. They'll be putting things on the floor very rapidly, see what they can pass, get to the governor so he can veto them.
And buckle your seatbelts.
Right.
For that process. As a matter of fact, since you were last here, a month ago, over 200 pieces of legislation have been introduced, so it's quite a wild roller coaster. We'll talk about some of those tonight, but let's begin with your offices, Wisconsin Family Action offices, that were firebombed on Mother's Day of 2022. We know that there was the leak that happened of the Dobbs decision, and shortly thereafter, on Mother's Day, your offices were firebombed, and I understand that there is some movement that's taking place, that the one who is alleged to have committed the crime pled guilty.
He did. So you're right. And Wisconsin Family Action, Wisconsin Family Council occupy the same space. We're all the same people in the same space. IRS makes us make those distinctions. But we were firebombed, and I just saw the picture come up here. The office seen around the world. The picture resurrected in March of this year. The FBI arrested a man whose DNA matched the DNA, one of the sets of DNA that were taken from my office after the firebombing. And they arrested him. He was getting on a plane to go to Guatemala with a one-way ticket, and he was in Boston. So they brought him, eventually they got him extradited back here. He's been in either the county jail or in federal penitentiary since then, since late March. And on a week ago, the Monday before Thanksgiving, the U.S. Attorney's Office filed a plea agreement in which the individual, he's Indian, it's Roy Chowdhury. I think I got it fairly close there. He was agreeing to plead guilty, but we didn't say a whole lot about that because until he actually did that in front of a court, it could be changed. Right. So this past Friday, in the federal courthouse in Madison, I went over there at 1 o'clock. And he came in. He wasn't in handcuffs or anything. He was in a jumpsuit, orange jumpsuit. He had a lot of his family members there and friends who were there. It was a fascinating time, Jim, to see this happen because first thing they wanted to know is, are you pleading guilty of your own volition? You've not been coerced. There's been no money. There's been no bribery of any sort. Have you been promised anything? And he said no. They had to go through a whole litany of questions. And the judge said to him, you do understand the minimum sentence we can give you is 5 years and the maximum is 20. You can also be fined $250,000. You may have to provide restitution for the damages. And there were a couple of other things. And they asked him repeatedly, do you understand all this? And he said, yes, I do. And then he entered the guilty plea. So sentencing won't take place until February 14th. But I want to make sure people understand. When they talk about reduced sentence, all that means is that, number one, they can't do less than 5 years, okay? But they can't do more than 20. So the judge will make the final determination. But because he willfully admitted responsibility for the crime, that means he probably won't get the 20. He'll get something between 5 and 20. I'm allowed to make a victim statement in person in the court, so I'll prepare one in writing and deliver it orally the day of the sentencing. At least that's the plan. Because I think it would be important for them to hear, the for the judge to hear our side of this.
Right.
So at this point now, there are 2 more sets of DNA. And one is complete, the other is kind of partial, but this is still an open case because there are other people involved. But we aren't asking for retribution or vengeance, or, we're not looking to go beyond what the law says, but we do want justice under the law, which is somewhere between 5 and 20 years.
Yeah.
So-
Okay, so that's an update. And again, the sentencing is when?
February 14th,
February 14th.
Madison,
Okay.
Federal Courthouse.
Okay, very fine. And so thank you for that update. I know it was a very traumatic event there, and we have seen this at facilities, pro-life facilities, pro-family facilities around the country, and most of these have no conclusion to them as far as finding perpetrators, and all practical purposes, law enforcement, the FBI, have been dragging their feet in the process.
Well, I know it appears that way on some. I did get some information that made me a little bit more understand this process, but I will tell you that once they got a DNA match with the half-eaten burrito, remember, that's how they found him. And actually, they matched a handwriting from an anti-police demonstration at the state capitol in January of this year. A Capitol police officers saw the handwriting and said, "Hey, that looks a lot like that handwriting in that firebombing." So they were able to figure out who was doing that, match it to a license plate, and started tracking them. And once they got that half-eaten burrito and were able to get the DNA, then they could start doing what needed to be done.
So much going on behind the scenes.
There's a lot going on behind the scenes, but we think that this plea of guilty and wrapping this one person up is the first one in the nation from all of these situations that have happened.
Right.
So I think they were pretty pleased that that they were able to do that.
Yeah.
So so far so good on this.
Well, Jelaine, I know I look forward to this time of year, Christmas time, celebrating the birth of Christ and the reason for which he came. Scripture tells us the Father sent his Son to be the Savior of the world. And though we don't know the exact day that Jesus Christ was born here on this earth, we do know that he did come. And that's what we celebrate this season, that we celebrate the Savior. And recently, the National Railroad Museum in De Pere, Wisconsin, having up displays and a number of trees, and many are dismayed at the mockery of Christmas that is on display on one of the trees, and mockery, in my opinion, of the birth of Christ by allowing a tree to be decorated, sponsored by a state chapter, we understand, of the Satanic Temple. Using satanic symbols, an ornament with Hail Satan, an upside-down cross, a snake coiled at its base, a depiction of Satan himself. Your response to this?
Well, I'm not happy with it. The 66 trees, a festival of trees, and just to clarify for our viewers, the National Railroad Museum has this as a part of their main display, their main presentation of all their engines and all the things related to it. So if you go, you're going to see it. And that was their plan. So 66 trees sponsored by individuals, and here comes this one. Now, on one level, I hate it. And I think it is a mockery. And it's anti-everything you and I believe, and probably most of our viewers. And one of the things is, I think the losers in this, Jim, are children. And the reason I think that is, I think this puts parents in a very unfortunate situation. Kids love trains. Christmas has this nostalgia for trains.
Yeah.
So the parents are forced into this decision. I go, and then have to try to figure out what to do with this tree. And by the way, there's a transgender tree there too. And so how to explain these things to children who are being exposed or just don't go. And now the National Railroad Museum tries to say they don't take any federal, state, or local tax dollars, but they do take grants from government. I don't know about you, Jim, but it's my understanding that government has no money to grant to anyone unless you and I give it to them. So they are taking public money. And you would think that this would make them somewhat more responsible, but it doesn't. And, the museum CEO says, hey, we don't discriminate, you should use it. It's just so regrettable, but this is where we are with our culture. So we have our display up in the Capitol now, our nativity display and our sign. When we got up there on Friday, Freedom from Religion Foundation hadn't been there, but they're going to come display their blasphemous nativity scene that mocks everything I believe and you believe. But the rotunda is a public place for those kinds of displays. It's just so regrettable, but it's where we are in our culture.
Yeah.
These people feel free to do this and to make a mockery of it. And they're going after us. They want us uncomfortable. They want to make us afraid, and they want to try to, quote, put us in our place.
Yeah.
So it's a time for us to make tough decisions.
Symbols of Christianity have been under attack. We saw what happened recently in Wauwatosa, in which employees were told on what not to decorate and even to put a ban on colors red and green. Liberty Council got engaged with that, and there was a 180-degree reversal on the part there. But there are many attempts not to say the name of the person whose birth we celebrate that is unfolding, as well as just the efforts to keep everything as secular as possible, so not to offend. We see that even happening with Hanukkah, which comes up this week, Thursday, begins, and places that will not want a Jewish menorah to be up for sake of offending individuals.
Well, everybody's so sensitive and overly sensitive, and well, I'm offended or whatever, and yet it's okay to offend Christians over and over and over. But I'll tell you where I come down on some of this is the reason we are the brunt of so much of attack is because we are the truth. And Satan knows that his days are numbered. And so he's very aggressive to keep Christianity pushed to the sideline, to make it uncomfortable to be a Christian. I think God is gathering his remnant, Jim. The people who are willing to say, this is the truth, this is who we worship, and we make no apologies for that. Part of the reason that some of this is happening in our culture is Christians took a pass for many, many years on engaging and pushing back. And they, vacuum is not acceptable. Something's going to fill it. And so they feel, the people who oppose our views feel very comfortable stepping in and saying, no, you all are not welcome in this public arena. You're not welcome in government. We don't want to hear from you. Go into your churches and your homes and you do your own thing. That's what Obama tried to say, right? When he said you can have freedom of worship,
right? But
we want freedom of religion,
right?
So, yeah.
They certainly want to keep you within your four walls, nothing outside of that. Julian Appling is with us here tonight from Wisconsin Family Council. It's our legislative public policy program that we hold monthly here on inFocus. And so we're going to turn to some issues of public policy. And Julian, I understand that here's a piece of legislation. It's Assembly Bill number 465. They called the Help Not Harm bill, but actually has been something that's been forwarded to the governor for his signature. Just tell us a word what this is about. So
this is a bill that would prohibit medical personnel from performing surgeries or prescribing cross-sex hormones or puberty blockers for minors who are struggling with gender confusion. That's why we call it Help Not Harm, because these young people need help.
Right.
They don't need harm to bodies that are developing, that are otherwise healthy, and given surgeries that are irreversible and drugs and things like this that have untold long-term effects. So the Senate and the Assembly passed it. Excuse me. I don't know, I can't remember which body held it, but it's been passed quite a while.
Yeah,
I kept wondering, when are they going to get this bill out there? So they put it out last Thursday. Now, I expected the governor, to grab it and just veto it on Friday and then get out of town. But so far, he hasn't. Now, look, I'm not naive. I think he's going to veto it. His worldview is so dramatically opposed to what this bill is doing and attempting to do to protect our children. So I anticipate he'll veto it. But here's how I look at this: the legislature did the right thing and got this bill through, and now it's on the governor. And so if he chooses to veto, that's truly on him. He's saying he doesn't care if these children are subjected to these. These are kids that are way too young to understand the long-term effects of what they're doing.
Now, if he does indeed follow up with a veto on this, we do know that it would take a 2/3 veto override vote, of which the Senate does have 2/3 Republican, 1/3 Democrat in the party. But in the House, it's a different story.
Yeah, in the Assembly, we're short about 3 votes. So there's no way to get to that, because I don't think you're going to get any, well, no Democrats voted for that. So in trying to override the governor's veto.
Okay.
It's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate.
When they do a veto override vote, does that involve only those that are there on that given day in the legislature?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yep, 2/3 of who's there. Yep.
Okay.
Which can get interesting.
Yes, yes, okay. Jelaine, let's talk about some other issues here as well. We were just talking about the governor and this bill being given to him. I understand there's been some controversy coming out in recent days regarding secret email addresses that he has been utilizing under a different name, an alias.
I thought this was the governor who talked about transparency. Am I remembering the wrong governor?
One and the same.
Transparency in governing and his administration. And then we find out that, and I'm grateful, Wisconsin right now found this out, that he was using a secret email and borrowed the name of a well-known baseball player who's deceased. And apparently his family has found out about this and is not happy that that the governor has appropriated this. But what this represents is a slap in the face to the Wisconsin citizens, that the governor's running this shadow communication system in which he's doing his real work, while over here, he's got this governor's email, public email, but when he really wants to communicate something, he's doing it behind the scenes where it's not transparent at all. I got to believe that there's lawsuits or something coming from this. I'm not sure exactly how all that works. But look, I was the one who sat back and said, why are we not suing someone when the governor took his veto pin in the budget and gave $325 a year per student increase for 400 years by creatively using his veto pen? So I don't know. I don't know what will happen as a result of these secret emails, but it's wrong.
Some will say.
By the way, he's been so cavalier about it. Like it's no big deal.
Well, and so has the Attorney General in regard to that. But there have been allegations that Scott Walker did this and others before him, but I'm not aware of anybody that has exposed that. Or sometimes you'll have, just use somebody's first name, their last name, and other times it may be governor, but their name is still implied with that.
They haven't borrowed somebody else's name and persona.
Right.
And
how does that relate to open records requests on various topics and issues?
You never get them. Because you can't, the minute, people who don't do open records requests don't know this, but you only get what you ask for in an open records request. So if you ask for something that has a certain email in it, that's what you're going to get. They're not going to give you anything, by the way, we'll just turn this over because we're good people. That's not going to happen. So nobody knew that address was out there. So anybody trying to get communication on a subject relative to the governor's office or communications with or from him, are never going to find that. But by the way, let's talk quickly about this idea that everybody else has done it. As you say, I didn't ever hear anything about that from another governor. But even if it was true, now we know, and it has to stop. We can't keep perpetuating bad behavior and behavior that cuts the citizens out from knowing what's really going on with our government.
Jelaine, there's been a change happening in our Senate, and last week we saw that the Senate Minority Leader, Melissa Agard, stepping down from that position.
Yeah, she's stepping down from her leadership position to run for Dane County Executive. That must mean the current county exec is not running again, or else she's really in for a battle because he's pretty popular. So what they did was allowed her to step down, and they very quickly filled that void. And Diane Hesselbein is stepping in that role as minority leader. So in order to make sure everything goes smoothly in the state Senate. So a little bit changed, but to make sure people understand, Agard will still be in the Senate, so we're not having any special election.
She didn't resign, just stepping down from that position.
Now, if she wins in April, according to the new law that we passed, you can't hold that kind of office and hold a state or Senate or state assembly office. Remember the guy from Manitowoc, Bob, I can't remember his last name, but yeah, he had done that for years, been the county exec in Manitowoc, and then also being a state assembly rep. So they've shut that down now. So she will have to do that. And if she wins, then there will be a special election. Well, it probably won't be a special election because we'll be coming up in 2024.
Right. So it would just sit unrepresented for some time. Yeah. Let's talk about a new challenge coming about, and this is a challenge to Act 10. Act 10 brings really government benefits and closer in line with the normal public, the people who pay the taxes for this. I've got three different graphs. This is from the MacIver Institute. The first graph here is according to the MacIver Institute, Act 10 has saved taxpayers a whopping $16.8 billion. You can see from 2012 to present, $16.8 billion has been saved taxpayers. There is a second graph that shows a breakdown of the retirement and savings and the health care savings and how much has been saved through the government. It's been enacted, like state government, $1.6 billion on the retirement savings. You'll see for schools, $4.2 billion. That's significant money. And then also on the health care savings as well. And the third graph that we have is from the city of Milwaukee alone that posts the trajectory trend for health care prior to Act 10. That's what the blue is right there. That's where things were headed without Act 10. But because Act 10 was passed, this now shows the adjusted line, and this is really being boasted on by the city of Milwaukee. This is how things are looking for them. So they're taking advantage, as other municipalities have taken, and schools have taken advantage there. But now, even after many lawsuits were filed initially with this, and the courts upheld Act 10, it's back in the courts again. What's going on?
Well, surprise, surprise, surprise. We said going into the April election this year for a new Supreme Court justice that these kinds of things would be there. I'm going to tell you that the only thing that surprises me about this lawsuit is that it wasn't sent directly to the state Supreme Court. I think, however, people are beginning to understand that when you do go directly to the state Supreme Court, everybody's getting a little suspicious now because clearly this lawsuit was filed, and I think it's Dane County where they filed this, because we have a different court. We now have a liberal-leaning court. We have a 4-3 liberal contingency on our state Supreme Court. And so they're hoping that it will move through the Dane County Court, which is extremely liberal, get to the appellate level, get through there, that's another liberal court, level of court, and go to the state Supreme Court, and that the state Supreme Court will strike it down, Jim. And this is unfortunate. You're talking about $16 billion. That's not chump change. That's real money for real taxpayers in the state. The problem with liberals, and one of the problems with liberals, is they never mind spending my money and your money. They never mind that we have all of this ballooning that was going on prior to Act 10. I served on the school board. I saw what happened with how insurance was going up and how we negotiated so much of these extra things. And it was amazing how that was happening. And we reined it in on Act 10. And not only that, public employees were given a choice of whether or not they were going to join a union.
They left the unions in droves.
And so now, if Act 10 is overturned, all those people who exercised a legitimate freedom in saying, yes, they would be, if they're going to be employed in a school, yes, they're going to be a union employer, they're going to lose their job if they decide not to join the union. We're a right-to-work state, so I find this fascinating. Right to work is for private union companies and things like that. So it doesn't really apply, as I understand how we enacted right to work. It doesn't really apply to public employees. We relied on Act 10. There's so many people and so many entities, like you just showed Milwaukee, of all the communities in our state that needed some help financially. It was and still is Milwaukee. And we're sitting here and they're in trouble.
Now, coming up in January, we're going to see the sales tax in the city of Milwaukee escalate a couple of percent. The county is going up another 0.4% as well. If Act 10 is found to be non-valid, they're going to be crying again, saying, we need more money, we need more money. It would raise taxes significantly to recoup some $16.2 billion across the state.
Oh, no, this will throw the state into a real economic dilemma. It really will. We've kind of dug ourselves out through the Walker administration, through that 8-year period. And over the last 5 years, we've not done so much damage to it, in spite of some people's best efforts, that we are back into a hole again. We have a rainy day fund. I mean, part of this is, this is a contentious amount of money that everybody thought they knew how they wanted to spend it. It was our money, and got very little vote on that kind of. But we aren't in dire straits right now. And part of the reason we're not is Act 10.
Act 10.
But these are people who, they want to undo school choice. They've already filed a lawsuit with the state Supreme Court. They want to take care of Act 10. And we're going to talk about another abortion is going to land there. By the way, I'm just shocked that Dane County judge has still not handed down a determination, a basic determination at the trial court level on that issue. But look, the left told us what they were going to do. If Janet Protasewicz got elected to the state Supreme Court, which she did and took that position in August, they told us they were going to do this. It wasn't a secret. But apparently not enough of us believed it because she pretty handily won.
Well, another of the issues is redistricting. That's another matter that's before the court.
Well, this one went straight to the August 1st happens. She gets takes her seat, and she's sworn in within a matter of hours or a day at the most. And within 4 days, there were 2 lawsuits challenging the legislative maps, not our congressional districts, but our state assembly and state senate districts. And the court accepted one of them. So they don't have to start back down at a county level and go through the appellate. Now the court's going to deal, and they already had the hearing. They had the hearing, 2 weeks ago, I think it was. And I just read a report on it that before the people who brought the lawsuit the attorney could hardly get a sentence out, Rebecca Bradley, who's ultra-conservative, said, I don't understand, why are we being here? Why didn't you do this a long time ago? It's not like you did 2 years ago. Why are you doing this now? And before this is over, she comes right out and says, we all know why we're here, because the court has changed. And so now you think that you can cause everything to go back into bedlam, because what they want to do is impose new maps that will definitely favor Democrats for the 2024 election. But they want to undo what happened in 2022. They want all the senators who ran in 2022, plus the ones who need to run in 2024. So now you have all 33 of our state senators involved. Look, to the victor belongs the spoils, right? So the Republicans have owned the state assembly and the state senate for what, 10, 12 years now, at least? And part of the spoil of that victory is you get to make the maps. Now you have to make them within certain boundaries and within certain legalities. But the Democrats just keep saying, oh, no, these are gerrymandered. You don't think they're going to be gerrymandered when they get done with them with this set?
And didn't the justice, as she was running for this office too, discount those maps heavily?
Well, she did, and she said they were rigged and unfair. And yet she won't recuse. I don't have to recuse. I was just giving you my values and my opinion. That doesn't mean how baloney. I don't know what else to say. It's baloney. She should recuse on that, in my opinion. But real quickly, I think that race, Jim, with the overt things that she said about issues that were going to be before her as a justice, I think she's forever changed how we conduct judicial races. Yeah, she has. And the whole country has really taken note of this and the vast sums of money that were poured into this race as well. Millions.
So along with this, just breaking news this afternoon, just shortly before our program tonight, comes this. This is from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. GOP lawmakers propose abolishing Wisconsin Elections Commission, giving duties to the Secretary of State. This is a proposal of a group of Republican lawmakers that are trying to dissolve this entity that the legislature created and instead put all the election duties to the Secretary of State's office, but the Secretary of State would not be able to do certain things without the approval of the committees that would be responsible to, I believe, regarding elections and so forth.
Well, this is interesting because there's just been this ongoing tension for all of us that are conservatives versus the Wisconsin Elections Commission. Megan Wolf, and all of that, who has the authority to remove her from office and all of that. What I don't understand about this is the word propose is very significant. I have to believe that the legislature, I don't know if that has to go in a bill form that would then go to the governor, or can and I'm sorry, I don't know for sure, but
this has just happened before the program.
Yeah, but can the legislature do this of their own accord? For instance, when they approve people to all of these positions, it doesn't go to the governor. When the Senate gets final approval for the people who are appointed to commissions and boards and committees, once the Senate does that, the governor has no say in it. So perhaps this falls into that area. I don't know. I'm not sure, because I haven't seen a lot about this, but I'm not sure who the people are, the legislators who have proposed this. I just don't know how well it will be received by Assembly leadership.
Yeah. Well, and I believe there's a lot of squawking going on right now in regard to this, but what that proposal will look like in bill form will make all the difference in the world.
It will, and I appreciate people who keep trying to make it better so that we can have some confidence in our elections.
Julie, this is rather troubling that has come from the Sun Prairie Schools school district, in which we have this controversy, and I've got a couple articles here. The first one here from the Western Journal: outrage over trans student 18 showering with girls forces federal investigation of school district. Also, we have here from Madison.com, and this would be a story from the news there. Feds probe Sun Prairie Schools' response to locker room incident involving transgender student. And then, of course, we have the original letter that came out just recently here, November 29th. This is from the U.S. Department of Education, in which they're launching their probe into what's happening at Sun Prairie. Enlighten us, what took place?
Well, apparently this individual went into a girl's locker room, claimed he was a woman, a girl.
Announcing I'm transgender.
Announcing and exposed himself to these young girls. And parents rightly were upset. The girls were upset. They made a complaint. Will got involved. Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty wrote to Sun Prairie School District and said, look, your policy that allows for this kind of thing has no merit. It's not founded on anything that the federal government or any court has required. And we need to fill in one gap here. The Biden administration, Jim, has tried to change Title IX to make it where sex includes gender identity. Yeah. But they haven't done it yet. So there's nothing in a memo form or anything that has teeth that's forcing public schools to do this kind of foolishness. And the public's going, we got to do this. The federal government is saying we have to do this. And because, the Biden said we're going to withhold money. Okay, so what I'm encouraged about, and maybe I'm falsely encouraged, but it's at least the Office of Civil Rights is saying we're going to investigate this. And as Will said, though, in a recent statement, until we see how seriously they take this, we shouldn't get too excited. Yeah. Because the Civil Rights Office may come in and just kind of wink at it. But we'll put Sun Prairie on notice. And just interestingly, there was an article that popped up just today in Colorado. An 11-year-old, 11, was assigned to sleep with a transgender boy who was claiming to be a girl on an overnight trip.
An overnight trip, and parents had no knowledge whatsoever.
No knowledge.
No assignments were given, and all of a sudden out on this field trip, and she realizes the person who she is to share a bed with is a biological boy.
Yeah. Well, this is where we are. This is how far we go. And this is these schools thinking that in my mind, there's two possibilities. They think that the federal government is forcing them to do this. They are not. There's something there. Or secondly, that's really where their worldview is. They don't see anything wrong with that. Well, parents see something wrong with it. The parents in Sun Prairie have every right to protect the safety, the security, and the privacy of their daughters. Those daughters should never be exposed to that kind of thing. And schools should not be putting in place policies that allow for it. There is no business for that. And people like you and I, for years, have said, this is going to happen. These kind of things are going to happen. And everybody looked at us like, oh, no, that can't be
You're
possible.
Wearing a tinfoil hat.
Yes. And you're Chicken Little, the sky is falling. I'm sorry that we're right. I'm terribly sorry we're right. Because these are children. Because once you see, you can't unsee. Once you've had that kind of thing happen to you, that's there forever.
Yeah.
So, let's keep an eye on this one. Let's you and I keep an eye on this one, because I'll be interested to see. I don't know if the Office of Civil Rights got some kind of hammer held over their head that said you better investigate this. You're looking really bad. Or if they just really said, okay, this is our job, and we're going to do it. Yeah. We'll see.
So friends at Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, hitting close to home, but the question is this happening in other locations in the state as well that we don't know about? This one has certainly come to the public light, as did today the case in Colorado with the 11-year-old. And there are school districts that just have put those policies into place. I think of Eau Claire and other places around the state of Wisconsin that have similar type policies. In Focus here tonight is our public policy legislative update monthly program. We fill them with a lot of information. Hope you can take it in. You're writing notes as you go through. We want to tell you about some other things that are going on. Since you were here last month, we know that the Assembly passed what's known as a safe haven or a baby box bill. Describe that for us. What is that?
Well, this is just wonderful. Years ago, a lady came to me and she said, you know, we got to have something like other states have where parents who are in crisis situations don't want to put their kids through foster care and get them into the system, but we could have families just take them in for a limited amount of time, take the stress off. That's our original safe haven. That was part of that. But then years and years ago, we developed a safe haven law for babies. And we said, if a baby's under 72 hours of age, 72 hours old, a parent can anonymously relinquish the baby to a hospital worker, law enforcement, or an EMT official working like through a fire department. And we've had some babies saved that way. But that law requires the actual personal interaction. They can't just hide in the shadows. So other states and Korea have instituted these baby boxes where they design them to be perfectly safe. They're ventilated, they're checked, there's alarms, there's all kinds of things, so that parents with an infant under 72 hours old can relinquish the baby without ever interacting with someone. So there's complete anonymity. And states that have done this, Indiana is really the gold standard on it, has had some really good outcome.
Yeah.
You know, the Safe Haven Law for Infants, our organization kind of took a standoff look at, because in a perfect world, we don't want babies given up. But the alternative is they're thrown in a dumpster.
Right.
Or they're thrown out in a field, or other tragic means of taking care of a baby that they don't think they can care for. So this is exciting. I don't think this is going to get, I think this is going to get passed. I don't see any reason why it doesn't go through the legislature. The question is, will the governor sign it? Governor had, remember last year, or last session, he had a historic year of vetoes. I don't know where we're going to go this year. So.
Okay, but again, that passed through the Assembly does need to be passed by the Senate, though, at this point. Okay, well, there is a public hearing that was just held last week on a couple of bills in the Senate. Senate Bill number 597 and number 598. And again, this is something that really allows parents to be parents.
Well, these are not complex bills, but what they're doing is they're trying to recreate some situations to protect children and their parents. And so what would happen is, right now, if a parent wants to know what their child is checking out of a public school or a library or a public library, can find out, but the parent has to request it. These bills put the burden on the school library or the public library, that automatically, if a child 16 or under comes in and checks out something, then some kind of mechanism is triggered where the parent gets within 24 hours notification of what has been checked out, whether it's through the school library or the public library. One of the bills deals with school libraries, the other bill deals with public libraries. And by the way, DPI, that's all under DPI. Our public libraries and our school libraries are all run by or overseen by DPI. So this is, you know, the fight, the pushback against this was, oh, it's just one more thing for librarians to do. It's not, you know, it's not necessary. Parents can get there. No, this reverses who is responsible, because the bills assume that parents should know and want to know, and parents shouldn't have to ask. So we'll see what happens with this. This is a first step. Public hearings. Get them moving.
So they had the public hearing last week, but just advance notice, there's a public hearing taking place tomorrow on a couple of bills. And I'll just put out the public notice sheet here. This is a meeting before the Committee on Education, and they're going to be hearing several bills, but two of them of interest are Assembly Bill 341 on sexual misconduct against a pupil by a school staff member or volunteer, and Assembly Bill 308, and that is protection from prosecution for employees of libraries and educational institutions possessing obscene materials.
So a lot of people don't understand this, but state employees and state entities have a lot of immunity from liability. Right now, Assembly Bill 308 deals with employees of libraries and educational institutions, schools. If obscene materials are put into the library and young people check them out, right now there's immunity for those employees. Assembly Bill 308 says, nope, you put that kind of material in, you're responsible for it. And if it fits the definition for obscene, then and kids check it out, then you are liable for that. No, this is not about banning books. It's not about censorship, okay? But it is about who's responsible for that kind of material that fits. We have a definition of obscenity in our state law, and it's pretty clear. And if it crosses into that, and these kids check it out, then you can be held liable for doing that, whether you're working for the school or in a public library or places like that, because they've enjoyed immunity from all this. Okay, an amazing thing. So Assembly Bill 341 is basically talking about if there's sexual misconduct between an employee and of any kind of school or a volunteer there, that it ups the ante of, number one, in this bill, you won't get your license back. There is a provision under current law.
Your teaching license.
Your teaching license, right. There is a provision under current law that you can get your license restored within a certain amount of time. What this bill is it ratchets up. And it actually makes it a class 1 felony, or excuse me, class I felony, which puts it into a very serious category and increases the penalties and the punishments and things like this, to try to say, just because you're in a school does not mean that you get by with mistreating people and any students. These are minors. So they're going to hold them to a much higher criminal standard on sexual misconduct.
Well, friends, that public hearing is taking place, and we have the notice right at the top of the hearing notice. Tuesday, December 5, that is tomorrow, 9:01 in the morning, room 412 East. They've got several bills, but those are two of them that are on the docket tomorrow. If you're not able to attend, but you'd like to weigh in on this, you can use the legislative hotline number, which is a toll-free number, 800-362-9472. That's 800-362-9472. Friends, we've got a list of new bills to talk about, but I'd like to open some phone lines this evening. If you have a question or comment about any of the things we've talked about here tonight or public policy related issues, our phone number for inFocus is 414-935-3030. 414-935-3030 or 800-733-8830. That's 800-733-8830. If you would like to text in your question or brief comment, be sure to include your first name, the city you're texting from, and send it to 414-439-3585. 414-439-3585. We've talked about such things as the National Railroad Museum having this satanic tree that they have put up. We have certainly talked about matters going on, the firebombing at the Wisconsin Family Action, Wisconsin Family Council offices. We've talked about the secret email addresses, the Help Not Harm bill that was sent to the governor, sitting on his desk right now, that protects young people from mutilating surgery. Say, we're going to help this child, not harm this child. We have also talked about the challenge to Act 10, the challenge to redistricting, and many other issues. So pick up your phone, give us a call tonight, 414-935-3030, 800-733-8830, or text in first name and city you're in, and send it to 414-439-3585. So we're going to go to our phone lines here tonight on inFocus, and we welcome your phone calls. We will get to some bills here that have been introduced as time permits this evening, but pick up your phone, give us a call. We're going to begin with Chris in Muskego. Hi, Chris, you're on the air.
Hi, thank you for everything you guys are doing. I love your show. Listen, instead of giving credence to these LGBTQ people and giving them a platform, thinking that what they're doing is okay and that they're just another group fighting for their rights, why don't they offer them psychiatric help with some kind of a course or some kind of a program to help them through their problem, because their thinking is all wrong, and that may help them through their problem, instead of forcing this perverted idea onto other people that have the correct way of looking at things. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, for your call here. Now, Juliana, at one time it was considered in the diagnostic manuals of psychiatry that this was a mental disorder.
Well, go through the alphabet, LGBTQ, all of those were considered a mental health issue, right? Mm-hmm. They've been redefined now to make sure that that's not that, and it's normalized it. We would contend like the help, let's take the help not harm bill, that's the kind of help they need.
Right.
They need good counseling, I would say biblical counseling, Christian counseling that helps them come to terms with how God made them and reconcile. And by the way, so Chris, one of the amazing things about the transgender side of the LGBTQ stuff is that children who struggle with gender identity, if they're left alone, somewhere between, and it's going to be a big range because the numbers are all over, but somewhere between 85 and 95% of those young people will come to grips with it. They'll come to terms with it and accept the biological sex that God made them, and it will be fine. They'll work that all out. It's when we insert physicians and counselors who are counseling, oh, you can change your sex, and God made a mistake, and all the rest of that we get in all this trouble. So they do need the help that good counselors can bring to them. The problem is mandating that kind of thing, because the minute we talk about that, then now we're talking about the conversion therapy.
Right.
And we've got communities all over our state that shut down conversion therapy, acting like it was some kind of shock therapy. Conversion therapy is talk. It's talk to say you don't have to be bound by this. So these are not easy issues, and unfortunately, the target and the group that is suffering is our young people.
You know, it's very interesting that the ban on conversion therapy we hear about so often in communities, it's such where the law or the legislation, the ordinances are written where you can be affirming of a change in sexual orientation or affirming of transgenderism. You just cannot be affirming, guide them to go back to what their biological sex is.
Well, and that's exactly right. I mean, with the way these resolutions have been written by these communities, Clare has one, Appleton has one, Milwaukee, Madison, I believe Janesville. I mean, we have them in numerous places across our state. They explicitly say that you can encourage them. You just can't give them a better answer. You can't redirect them. You can't say, do you understand that if you go down this road, you have this surgery? And by the way, there's a lawsuit right now in this state where a 19-year-old had a double mastectomy, and at 20 or 21, I believe, she had a hysterectomy. She's suing the doctors at the UW for a lack of information, so under the informed consent, because she never realized at 19 and 21, and I can understand this, the way their minds work, she never realized that meant she would never have children. And so now you have people who are minors, they're under 18, trying to work through all of this. And so the conversion therapy thing is just a way to shut down biblical counseling, Jim. That's all it is. It silence us.
I want to mention something else on this topic, and I just received a news story today. There is something that the U.S. Census Bureau does called the American Community Survey. Now, we're used to the surveys that come out every 10 years, how many people live in your household, the census, and we have to send that back in. But the American Community Survey, they're actually sending out on a regular basis. There are many people every year that are getting this all across the United States. And the news release was talking about a change in questioning that they were looking at for individuals to mark down what was your gender at birth and then what is your gender now, to compile such statistics.
Well, this is nonsense. It is utter nonsense. At the moment of conception, you're either XX or XY. And any kind of variation from that is so rare, unbelievably rare. Does it happen? Yes, it does, because we live in a fallen world. So even in that kind of, cellular level DNA and all the rest of that, yes, things happen. But doctors don't determine sex. Doctors just record it. They record what they see, what they know. This is crazy talk that these people are talking about. Gender is not a science.
It's at the moment of conception.
Absolutely. God assigns gender.
We've got some texts that have come in here tonight, too. By the way, our phone number, 935-3030, 414-935-3030. Here's a text from Al in South Milwaukee. Is there not a law, or should there be, that the USA it becomes first law of the land? That I believe they're implying English, or first language, first religion, first citizenship. I honestly cannot stand the denial of Christianity and the promotion of atheism. Where is our common sense morality? Again, they think evil is good, good is evil.
Well, again, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but Christianity has been pushed to the sideline in part. because we as Christians haven't been willing at points to weigh in and stand up. And by the way, I think part of what we've not done is we haven't shared the gospel. I mean, when was the last time we had a true national revival, a great awakening? It's been years, many years, decades since we've had that. And so people believe that Christianity is now an obstacle that they must overcome in order to get what they want. So they push us to the sideline. I don't believe that in the truest sense, we're not a theocracy. We're not a, quote, Christian nation in one sense. But we were founded on Christian principles. The Pilgrims and Puritans came over here, not for a better crop, not for better jobs. They came over here for religious freedom to teach their children according to the precepts of God. They came with the Geneva Bible, and they came and sacrificed everything to do that. And so many of our leaders were true Christians. Others believed in God. And they may not have been believers like we thought, but there was a general understanding. We're so far removed from that. And in large part, it's because we haven't kept Christianity at the forefront. Our evangelism has been weak. And when I say I'm pointing fingers at me. I'm not pointing fingers at everybody else. And we're all involved with this. But again, I just want people to understand, in order for things to change, we, the people who care about this, have to get involved at local level, at the state level, at the national level. Our churches need to get involved. We need to be speaking up on these issues. So many people sit in churches on Sundays and Wednesdays, and they I'm not saying they don't get Bible teaching, but it has to also have a component that says, I know out there in the news you're hearing this about the transgender thing, or this about our history, or whatever. And if we don't counter that in the church, some of those people leave saying, I'm just going to listen to the loudest voice.
We just had a rally tour with Bill Federer traveling throughout the country. Silence equals consent.
That's exactly right.
And that's where we have been at, silence equaling consent. Jelaine, let me share another text that came in here. This is from Shelley out of Tigerton. And says, how about insisting, this is relating to the firebomb at your offices, how about insisting on a longer sentence for the arsonist unless he identifies his accomplices?
Well, I kind of lean in that direction. It would be great. And that might be part of what I say, that until he comes forth with, because it's not like we don't know there were other people. We just haven't gotten any information that helps us. So it's a good idea, Shelley. Thanks for helping me with my victim statement.
Okay. Phone number tonight, 414-935-3030. You have time for a couple more texts as well, 414-439-3585. First name, city that you're texting from, 414-439-3585 here for In Focus. Jelaine Appling is with us here tonight from Wisconsin Family Council. Before we pick up this next call, though, let us give you their web address as well as their toll-free number as well. And we'd encourage you to get engaged with Wisconsin Family Council, get behind them, support them, stay informed through the media that they have, the email service and alerts that go out regarding issues here facing us. wifamilycouncil.org, wifamilycouncil.org, or 1-888-378-7395. You can just say, hey, I saw you on InFocus and I would like to get information. Keep me informed on things. So call them just 1-888-378-7395. We've got Maureen calling next from East Troy, Wisconsin. Hi, Maureen, you're on the air.
Hi, Leslie. I'm calling because I read an article in the Epic Times about this gender thing, and they say that because it's very unusual, like an epidemic of these gender change things, and they said they think that as psychiatrists think it is related to Munchausen by proxy, which is parents thinking their children have a medical condition and keep taking them from doctor to doctor to doctor. Well, they call this gender Munchausen by proxy.
Wow. Thank you, Maureen, for raising that issue. Jelaine, it just baffles me how a parent would take their child to a drag queen story hour at a library situation, or parents that are, wanting to dress their boy as a girl or girl as a boy. That's happening in some cases. But we also need to point out the indoctrination that's happening within the educational spectrum today, too.
Yeah, it's total indoctrination from the time they come in. You know, we got K4, we've got K5, regular K, so I guess K4, K5, and by the way, they're pushing for K3 in some places so they can then start the indoctrination sooner. And it is indoctrination. But, you know, Jim, as you know, I'm not a parent. But as I listen to parents, I understand when they say they want their children to be happy. They're trying, in their minds, they're trying to find a way to do what they think is the best for their children. And Satan has worked so convincingly on these parents that these parents believe you can do the impossible, change the child's sex. You can't do that.
Right.
What you're going to do is add frustration and talk about mental health issues and physical problems going out. I mean, look at all the detransitioners that we have now that are speaking up saying, this was a horrible idea.
Right.
And some parents are well-meaning in this. They just are poorly informed. And as a result, their children pay the price. And shame on any kind of medical personnel that would in any way say, oh, this is just fine. We're going to cut out perfectly healthy, developing body parts from a 16-year-old or a 13-year-old or whatever. And with that young person not really being able to process what that means 10 years from then or 15 years or however long. Ongoing medical issues. I learned recently that on some of this, I think it's cross-sex hormones, once you start on it, you're on it forever. Because otherwise your body's going to try to revert to its normal situation and the hormones and things that you produce. So this is just so profoundly sad. And drag queens and all the rest of that, you know, look, I have no explanation for why people think that's appropriate or cute or anything for toddlers or any other age, quite frankly. These schools that have them, shame on them.
Yeah,
shame
indeed. Julian Appling, our guest here tonight for inFocus, and this will be our final inFocus program of 2023. We'll be having some Christmas specials coming up. We are soon going to also be have a special program, be watching for it. We'll have some announcements on Pastor Jim Scudder. Just was returned from Israel and did a ride-along in an ambulance and took us to see some of the devastation there. We're soon going to be getting that put together here for TV 30. Also is going to be with us on radio, WVCY Radio, this coming Wednesday. Tune in at 2 o'clock live for that interview. But we want to say thank you for watching the program. And Julian, thank you for coming for these legislative updates.
Privilege. Thank you, Jim.
And a Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you as well.
Great. And to all of you viewers as well, thank you for watching inFocus program. We do wish you a very blessed Christmas, a most joyous New Year, as we focus on the fact that the Father sent His Son to be the Savior of the world. Good night.